the day grief tried to win, and why it failed. Welcome to the Soft Girl Era podcast, where we create sacred space for high achieving Black women to exhale, to heal, and to finally choose themselves without apology. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And today we're diving deep into a conversation that will shake you, hold you, and remind you that your resilience is not just survival, it's your superpower. I recently had the honor of sitting down with Toy Green, a warrior whose story of extreme loss, being overlooked and underpaid, and fighting the longest fight will leave you breathless. Toy Green is not just surviving, she's rewriting the narrative for every Black woman who has ever been told she's too much, not enough, or simply invisible. Her work in transforming pain into purpose has touched countless lives, and her refusal to let grief define her future is a testament to the unbreakable spirit that lives in all of us. She is making the world a better place by showing us that even when life tries to bury you, you can still bloom. Toy Green has endured what most of us pray we never face, losing her first sister to murder in 2009, a vicious and malicious act that shattered her world. Then in 2023, her baby sister was murdered on her first sister's birthday, shot 8 times in the streets of New Orleans, right in front of her 1 year old baby boy who miraculously survived. 2 years later, Toy lost her best friend of 28 years to a brain aneurysm. She almost gave up. She wanted to, but she didn't. And that refusal to quit, that decision to keep moving forward, even when the weight of grief tried to bury her, that's what we're unpacking today. Toy Green's message is clear. She has suffered extreme loss, has been overlooked, underpaid, and she's been fighting a long fight. But here's the thing, that fight didn't break her, it built her. And through her story and the stories of women who mirror her journey, we're going to explore 3 truths that every Black woman leader, entrepreneur, and professional needs to hear. Resilience after extreme loss is your superpower, even when grief tries to break you. One step forward keeps the fight alive. Overlooked and underpaid doesn't define your worth. Your value shines through persistence, no matter who's sleeping on you. And the long fight builds unbreakable strength. Every battle scar is proof you're built for the victory ahead. Let's start with Chanel Monroe, a Black entrepreneur in New Orleans who lost her brother to gun violence in 2018 while building her catering business from scratch. Chanel grew up in New Orleans' 7th Ward, watching family businesses crumble under the weight of violence and systemic neglect. When her brother was murdered on Bourbon Street, the same streets where tourists sip hurricanes and dance to jazz, she was left emotionally shattered. Investors dismissed her as just another street hustler. Contracts came in so low they barely covered her losses. She was overlooked, underpaid, and grieving in a city that kept spinning like nothing happened. But Chanel didn't quit. She networked relentlessly in Black business circles, pivoted to community pop ups funded by her own savings, and sought free legal aid to fight unfair deals. She learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was innovation. When she finally secured her first major contract, a $50,000 deal with the city, her revenue exploded by 300%. Her soul food events started packing venues, and she inspired a wave of Black women owned eateries in New Orleans, reducing food desert gaps in underserved communities. Chanel's story mirrors Toy Green's journey: extreme loss in the streets of New Orleans, being overlooked and underpaid, and fighting through it all with relentless determination. Now let's talk about Dr. Aisha Brooks, a Black OBGYN and clinic founder in Atlanta who lost her mother to COVID in 2020 while scaling her practice. Aisha rose from public housing, and her mother's death amid pandemic disparities hit her like Toy Green's compounded losses. She was underpaid by hospital networks that undervalued her expertise, overlooked for grants despite her focus on Black maternal health, and nearly forced to close her clinic. But Aisha didn't let grief silence her. She built a personal brand on social media, sharing her grief journey vulnerably, partnered with Black sororities for funding, and lobbied for policy changes. She won a $200,000 grant and launched a free clinic day serving over 500 Black women annually. Her work influenced Georgia's maternal health bills, saving lives in Black communities nationwide. Aisha's lesson: empathy turns pain into advocacy. Her story captures the essence of Toy Green's message: extreme personal loss, professional underpayment, and being overlooked, and the long term fight for Black women leaders who refuse to be erased. Then there's Keisha Johnson, a Black tech startup founder in Chicago who lost her sister to street violence in 2015 and her best friend to illness in 2022, while bootstrapping her app for community safety. Keisha grew up on Chicago's South Side, and her sister's murder and best friend's aneurysm mirrored Toy Green's tragedies. Investors dismissed her as too emotional after her losses. Underpaid freelance gigs stalled her growth amid grief. But Keisha joined the Black Founders Network for mentorship, crowdfunded via GoFundMe by sharing her story vulnerably, and iterated her app based on personal pain points. She raised a $1 million seed round, and her app is now used by over 10,000 users, alerting communities to dangers. Her work reduced response times to violence in urban Black neighborhoods, sparking similar tech innovations. Keisha's lesson: spice up your pitch with real fight stories. Her journey is a perfect parallel to Toy Green's double sister murders, best friend loss, and fighting through overlooked entrepreneurship. These three women, Chanel, Aisha, and Keisha, they're not just statistics or success stories. They're reflections of Toy Green's resilience. They're proof that when the world tries to erase you, overlook you, underpay you, and break you with loss, you can still rise, you can still build, you can still win. And more than that, you can still choose softness, you can still choose rest, you can still choose joy without guilt or apology. But here's where it gets real: Toy Green didn't just survive her losses, she transformed them. She's teaching us that resilience after extreme loss isn't about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about taking one step forward even when your knees are shaking. It's about refusing to let grief have the final word. When Toy's baby sister was murdered in front of her 1 year old baby boy, when that baby miraculously survived, Toy could have crumbled. She almost did. But she chose to keep fighting, not because it was easy, but because giving up wasn't an option. And that choice, that singular decision to keep breathing, keep moving, keep believing, that's what separates survival from transformation. And let's talk about being overlooked and underpaid. How many of us have walked into rooms where our expertise was questioned, our value diminished, our worth reduced to a number that didn't even cover our rent? Toy Green has lived that reality. Chanel Monroe was dismissed as just another street hustler. Dr. Aisha Brooks was undervalued by hospital networks. Keisha Johnson was called too emotional by investors. But here's the truth: being overlooked doesn't define your worth. Your value shines through persistence, no matter who's sleeping on you. Toy Green's message is clear: keep showing up, keep pitching, keep building, because your breakthrough is on the other side of their doubt. And the long fight, oh, the long fight builds unbreakable strength. Every battle scar is proof you're built for the victory ahead. Toy Green has been fighting since 2009 when her first sister was murdered. She's been fighting through 2023 when her baby sister was taken. She's been fighting through the loss of her best friend of 28 years. That's not just survival, that's testimony. That's a woman who refuses to let pain have the last word. And every Black woman listening needs to hear this. Your fight is not in vain. Every tear, every setback, every moment you wanted to quit but didn't, that's building something unbreakable inside you. So, what does Toy Green want you to do differently after hearing this? She's challenging you with one actionable step. Don't quit your fight. Document one overlooked win from your journey today. Maybe it's a client you landed when everyone said no. Maybe it's a boundary you set when people expected you to say yes. Maybe it's just getting out of bed on a day when grief tried to keep you under the covers. Document that win. Then pitch it boldly to one contact, someone who needs to know your value, and pay it forward by mentoring a sister facing loss. Because when we lift each other, we all rise. And how does Toy Green want you to feel during and after this conversation? Empowered, less alone in your pain, fired up to fight your long fight with unshakable hope, because that's what the soft girl era is about. It's not about being weak, it's about being soft enough to heal, strong enough to fight, and wise enough to know the difference. Toy Green's story, Chanel Monroe's hustle, Dr. Aisha Brooks' advocacy, Keisha Johnson's innovation. These are not just stories, they're blueprints. They're proof that resilience after extreme loss is your superpower. They're proof that being overlooked and underpaid doesn't define your worth. They're proof that the long fight builds unbreakable strength. But let's dig deeper. Let's talk about what happens when you're in the thick of it, when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, replaying every moment, every loss, every missed opportunity, when you're wondering if anyone sees you, if anyone values you, if anyone even cares. Toy Green has been there. She sat in that darkness. And what she's learned is this: the darkness doesn't last forever, but the strength you build in the darkness, that lasts a lifetime. When Toy's first sister was murdered in 2009, it was vicious, it was malicious, it was an act of violence that ripped through her family like a tornado. And just when she thought she had found some semblance of peace, her baby sister was murdered on her first sister's birthday. 8 bullets in the streets of New Orleans in front of her 1 year old baby boy. The intentionality of it all, the cruelty, it's enough to make anyone question everything. But Toy didn't question her worth. She questioned the world that allowed such violence to exist, and she decided to fight back, not with violence, but with purpose. 2 years after that, her best friend of 28 years died from a brain aneurysm. 28 years of laughter, tears, secrets, and dreams gone in an instant. Toy almost gave up. She wanted to, but she didn't. And that's the part of the story that matters most. Not the loss itself, but the choice she made in the aftermath. The choice to keep going, the choice to keep believing, the choice to keep building. And here's the thing about that choice: it's not a one time decision, it's a daily commitment. It's waking up every morning and deciding that today you're going to take one more step. Today you're going to honor the memory of those you've lost by living fully. Today you're going to refuse to let grief define your future. That's what Toy Green does every single day. And that's what Chanel Monroe, Dr. Aisha Brooks, and Keisha Johnson do too. Chanel could have closed her catering business after her brother's murder. She could have walked away from the dream, from the hustle, from the fight, but she didn't. She leaned into her community. She leaned into her vulnerability. She leaned into the belief that her brother's death would not be in vain. And today, she's feeding her community, creating jobs, and inspiring a new generation of Black women entrepreneurs in New Orleans. Dr. Aisha Brooks could have let the loss of her mother close her clinic. She could have walked away from her patients, from her mission, from her calling, but she didn't. She turned her grief into advocacy. She turned her pain into policy. She turned her loss into a legacy that's saving Black women's lives across the country. Keisha Johnson could have abandoned her app after her sister's murder and her best friend's death. She could have decided that the world was too cruel, too broken, too indifferent to care. But she didn't. She coded through her tears. She pitched through her pain. She built through her brokenness. And today, her app is protecting Black communities, reducing violence, and giving people a fighting chance. These women are not anomalies. They're not superhuman. They're human beings who made a choice. They chose resilience over resignation. They chose hope over despair. They chose to fight even when the fight felt impossible. And that's the message Toy Green wants you to hear. You have that same choice. You have that same power. You have that same resilience living inside you right now. So here's my challenge to you: stop waiting for permission to be great. Stop shrinking because someone can't handle your light. Stop letting grief, loss, or being overlooked convince you that you're not enough. You are enough. You've always been enough. And your fight, that long, exhausting, beautiful fight, is building something inside you that no one can take away. Toy Green almost gave up. She wanted to, but she didn't. And because she didn't, she's here inspiring a generation of Black women warriors to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep believing that their resilience is not just survival, it's their superpower. So I'm asking you today, what's your one overlooked win? What's the thing you did that no one saw? No one celebrated, no one acknowledged. Document it, write it down, say it out loud, and then pitch it, share it, own it, because your story matters. Your fight matters. Your resilience matters. And then pay it forward. Find a sister who's facing loss, who's being overlooked, who's fighting her own long fight. Mentor her, encourage her, remind her that she's not alone. Because when we lift each other, we all rise. When we share our stories, we all heal. When we fight together, we all win. The world tried to break Toy Green. It tried to break Chanel Monroe. It tried to break Dr. Aisha Brooks. It tried to break Keisha Johnson, but they refused to break. They bent, they bruised, they bled, but they didn't break. And neither will you. So today I'm challenging you to redefine what strength looks like. Strength is not pretending you're fine when you're falling apart. Strength is admitting you're struggling and asking for help. Strength is setting boundaries even when people call you selfish. Strength is choosing rest even when the world demands hustle. Strength is softness. Strength is vulnerability. Strength is you right now in this moment choosing to keep going. Toy Green's story is not just about loss, it's about legacy. It's about the choice to turn pain into purpose, grief into grace, and survival into superpower. And that's the story I want you to carry with you today. Not the story of what you've lost, but the story of what you're building. Not the story of who overlooked you, but the story of who you're becoming. Not the story of the fight you've been fighting, but the story of the victory that's coming. Because the victory is coming. It's closer than you think. And when it arrives, you're going to look back at this moment, at this fight, at this pain, and you're going to realize that it was all building you for something greater, something bigger, something beautiful. So don't quit. Don't give up. Don't let grief, loss, or being overlooked convince you that your story is over. Your story is just beginning, and the world is waiting to hear it. The world is waiting to see what you build. The world is waiting for you to rise. Rise, sis. Rise.